Hello, hello. So, welcome everyone back to Digital Growth Live. Super excited today with my entrepreneur, Michelle. Had a conversation with her last week. She's phenomenal. She's going to give us so many tips. I love our title today, Unstoppable with Her Power. And we're going to just dig in and dive into what does unstoppable mean? What does her power mean? And we're going to learn all about Michelle and her beautiful venture and her journey to entrepreneurship. So welcome, Michelle. Welcome.
Emily, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here as well. And before we jumped on, I was like, Michelle, I love how we're coordinating, not
Yes,
even know that we were coordinating.
on brand.
That's why I knew we just had a special connection because it just clicked when we were chatting last week.
Absolutely.
But so today we're going to talk about being unstoppable with her power. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And then I have like tons of questions because my brain is just like firing away. So introduce
Absolutely.
yourself to the world.
Well, hi, everyone. And Emily, thank you again for this opportunity to speak with your amazing audience. My name is Michelle Talbert, and I am originally from Queens, New York. If you're from New York, everybody lets you know we're from New York. But when I graduated from high school at 17, I went straight into a good government job with the federal government. I met the man who would become my first husband. And I got married at 18, had my son at 19, my daughter at 20. And I know you already guessed, by 22, I was a single divorced mother with 2 children under 2 in diapers. But while I was going to work every day in the daytime, I was also taking community college classes at night. And so after about 10 years of doing that day job, night school, weekend school before the digital age of online classes, raising the kids, I went up to Cornell, and the kids and I walked across the stage with my bachelor's degree, our bachelor's degree, when I was 30, and then went straight into law school. Thank you. Went straight into law school, then returned to where we were living at the time, which was Washington, D.C., and started corporate practice. The kids were in junior high and high school. And I'm practicing and I'm practicing, and I'm like, wow, this was a 16-year journey, right? I don't think I love this. So I'm practicing corporate law and realizing the things about law that I love are the rainmaking, going out, networking with people, bringing back business, getting business. But that's not what large corporate law firms want you to do when you're a first, second, third, fourth year. You're supposed to be grinding at your desk while the partners go out and get the business. And I just loved it so much. So after continuing to practice for a number of years, in 2012 is when I officially left law practice to start working on all things digital and social media and blogging and just everything online world related. And so that's where I'll leave off for now. But the journey has continued to working with women entrepreneurs. So
Wow.
that's the beginning of the journey to entrepreneurship.
That is, I mean, and that's kind of why we have the title of Unstoppable because you are unstoppable. I mean, that's an amazing journey. And I also think it gives you hope because people hope, right? Because sometimes people are like, it's too late to start something new. I'm
Woo!
unhappy where I'm at. I don't necessarily like the industry that I'm in and I want to change, but it's too late for me. And I mean, you just showed the trajectory that it's never too late.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Because why should cats be the only one who get a bunch of lives? Why can't we? And the beauty of it is at each stop along the way, I made incredible relationships. Right. And so those relationships, the lessons learned, the value, even in what seems like a misstep, there's so much to learn and take on to the next opportunity. If you can connect, keep connecting the opportunities. I think Oprah calls it luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And
Mm.
if you can look at all of these different experiences, even the ones that you may not love, as preparing you for whatever that next opportunity is, it takes on a whole new light. Because instead of the drudgery of it, you're like, what can I learn here? Oh, I learned I don't want to be that type of manager. Or I learned I want to respect my employees. Or I learned I want to communicate with people instead of shutting down. So if you can take those nuggets away, even from what you seemingly don't like, then that can take you forward into what is probably makes your soul sing.
I love it. I love it. And you're singing. Like I love the energy that you have. It's so bubbly and it's because I know you're passionate about what you do, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious because this one question keeps on popping up in my head, like unstoppable. What does that mean for you? And how do you help women become unstoppable?
Unstoppable doesn't mean you don't pause. It doesn't mean unpausable, right? So we have to take breaks. We have to respect our body and our minds and our spirits. So I don't want to give the impression that somehow unstoppable means never ending, unceasing.
Love it.
So
Thank you.
unstoppable, though,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
So,
That's our culture wants us to like our culture is always telling us unstoppable, go, 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 go. So
exactly.
thank you for saying that. And I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
continue.
No, but what unstoppable really means is that never stop learning, never stop growing, never stop seeking that which makes you feel like you are in your highest and best use as a person. Personally, I tell people all the time, as much as I work with entrepreneurs and helping micro business owners with their marketing and with their business development, I still say everything doesn't have to be monetized. I love Zumba. And I thought, I got the registration and thought I was going to teach Zumba. I don't need to be teaching anybody Zumba. I just need to go and enjoy it. But sometimes our culture teaches us we're supposed to make everything a stream of revenue, right? But there's something to be said about finding out what gives you joy and pursuing that in an unstoppable fashion. And that can be monetized, and that can also be a hobby or some combination of the two.
I
And
love
that I love to give people grace around that because we feel like we have to monetize everything we know how to do well.
I love it. And especially I feel like for beginner entrepreneurs, like it's always like, how do I monetize? How do I monetize? And then if you don't monetize, then you feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right. But you're
Correct.
putting all this work in. So it's almost like, how do you define success? And maybe it's not necessarily the monetary component of it.
Totally.
And then I also feel like sometimes for entrepreneurs, like that chasing the money, they forget why they went into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Correct, correct. And for me, I'm sitting in my co-working space here in South Florida in Broward County, and I opened in January 2020. This is my first ever brick and mortar business, a business that is built on coming together as community, as having events, as having meetings, and using the conference room. 2 months before the entire world said, no, you can't touch people, you can't have businesses open, you can't be in proximity, right? And so for me, the unstoppable piece was how do I serve my community? It wasn't how do I open the doors of a business. And I
Mm.
think that's one of the reasons why we're still here because it was a blessing that I had already started in an online environment. And so what the pivot, that ubiquitous word, it really wasn't a pivot for me. It was just like, okay, we're going to go back to normal. We're just going to do it from here instead of the kitchen table, right? Or out at some event. And that was also a blessing. So, again, the things that you learn along your journey, you have no idea how much value and how they can save your butt when you need to keep the doors open to your place.
I love it. And you were talking about serving your community. So tell me
Mhm.
a little bit more about your business and how you serve your community. I got to see some of your space online. Awesome. And you do amazing things for women entrepreneurs. So I can't wait until you either franchise or go to all different types of states so I could be working
Speak
with
it.
exclusive. I love it. I was like, I love the idea. I was just like, that's what we need more of. I love it because
Thank
I think women, for me, women do business differently. We like community. I'm not going to speak for everyone, but for me
you.
personally, and the women I'm around, we really like community and building each other up.
Yes.
And you're giving them a safe space to experiment and play and like triumph and cry and I like so I just think it's amazing. So tell us a little bit more about your spaces and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, this is a brick and mortar business. And what I've come to find out in the last 2 years is that the bricks or the building, the mortar are the people. That's what really holds this building together, right? And so, this is her power space. We are women forward, men welcoming, co working space, podcast studio. You can host events and have meeting rooms and business address. So, that's the nuts and bolts of what we do. Well, really, what we do is provide services for micro business owners, specifically women and Black people, people of color, who are micro businesses. And those are super small solopreneurs, side hustlers, the people who work 9 to 5 on the day job and 5 to midnight, 2 a.m. on the daydream, so that they can have a place exactly to look big from the perspective of having a professional mailing address and having deliveries accepted during business hours, right? When you're usually at work and then you have to go chase down your package. And so we're able to serve those business services, but we're also able to provide community. So we have Toastmasters, we have monthly workshops where we highlight members of the community that have knowledge that can enrich the rest of the community, and they give freely of their time every month to teach things like accounting and how to use Canva for your business. Did you know you can make a QR code on Canva? You know, those kinds of things that when you're sitting at your computer trying to figure out WordPress at 2 a.m., you feel very alone.
Yeah.
So we have the community, the resources, the information, and a way for you to continue to market and expand your platform, because more people learn about you when you get in front of the audience, right? We're sharing one another. Emily, you and I'm sharing this with my community. You're sharing this with your community. Both communities enrich, and there you go. We all win.
Yay, I
So
love it.
that's for Power Space. That's it. And we have both completely women centered and women exclusive community and workshops and things of that nature. And then we have co-ed opportunities as well, like Toastmasters and our Unchamber events. The men come, and about 30% of our community is made up of men.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I love the funny thing is, when I say I love to work with women entrepreneurs, sometimes men are like, what about us? Like, what are we? And I was like, I love how your phrasing of it. I can't remember how
You're
you said it.
welcome. It's woman
Welcome.
forward, men
Woman
welcoming.
forward. Love it.
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, yes, I love to serve women entrepreneurs, but it's not to say I don't serve men. And I think we sometimes it gets lost. I don't know, lost in the translation of our dichotic, the split of our current state, where we're always having opposing views, like men or women. Like, no, it's both, right? We could focus on promoting women, but we can also bring the men in. It's we all work together. So I love that. I love that.
And there's a difference between being exclusive. We are an exclusive community of generous, of heart and spirit focused entrepreneurs, but we're not excluding. We
There
do
you
are
go.
not exclusionary. We
Yeah.
don't exclude anyone. Everyone belongs here if you feel that this place offers what you need and provides the environment in which you can shine and succeed.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Oh man, I just had another question that I was going to ask you and it just kind of went
It
away.
happens, doesn't it?
Oh, now I remember. So 2020, super excited. Brick and mortar, like, yes, I have said no to being a lawyer because I want to do something different. Now I'm an entrepreneur doing all the social media and I'm like brick and mortar. And then 2020 and you're like, OMG. So it's interesting because you said you pivoted, but it really wasn't a pivot. So tell me about your online or your virtual services for women and
Sure,
for your
sure.
community.
And actually during COVID, to be quite frank, we were quite co-ed, Most of our programming was co-ed through the pandemic.
Yeah.
I did not exclude anyone. If you needed it, we had it. We didn't, our book club is for women now, right? And things like that. But a lot of that got put on pause. And I founded the No Small Business Left Behind Summit. And we brought in people to tell you how to crowd fund your PPP. I launched that right after the PPP ran out of money and there was nothing left for small business owners. And the mantra was, they're too big to fail. We need to help them. Well, we're too small to be left behind. And that's why I launched that. Our first event was in May. It was a 6-hour summit. Right. And we had hundreds of people log in to get information to stay afloat. In the first quarter of 2020, we lost over 440,000 Black businesses.
Wow.
In America, closed. That was a 3-month period that everyone else was saying they're too big to fail, while we were having no resources, access, information, all of that was shut down. And then top that off with being isolated. So for us, it was about creating an environment where people could get on, log into their computer, and knew that they were getting trusted information from all types of different places that they didn't know existed. And I also started a mailing list just for grants and all types of, and I still to this day send those out. As soon as I get a grant, I send it out to people to let them know, hey, apply for this money. There's scholarships, there's grants, there's opportunities for you to get into accelerators and all of that. So I'm not in competition with anyone who provides business services. I believe there's enough of business owners who need help that we all need to play a role. And so that was during the pandemic, going back to understanding how to use technology. And on top of that, places like SCORE, the SCORE mentorship program, the local office didn't know how to use Zoom. So they reached out to me to help them have an online delivery service for the things that they were typically doing as workshops in person. So that was very early in the pandemic. My phone was ringing off the hook because everybody knew I knew how to use online platforms.
I love it. I love it. Cutting edge all over the place.
Yeah, there's some benefits to being ahead of your time, but then also the first people out take all the bullets too, right? So there's something to be said about being on the front line.
Tell me about your experience about being on the front line, because like part of these conversations that I have with Digital Growth Live is to show all the different emotional capacities that you're going to be as an entrepreneur. Like we always see the positive and the excitement, but not many people talk about like the struggle and just the emotions that come along with it, right? Like you're putting all this energy and effort, and like you say, you encounter things that you're not familiar with, and you kind of stumble and you kind of fall, and nobody wants to show that clumsy side. So I'm just curious, like, what does it feel like to be like cutting edge, and like how does that feel in terms of like a support system and everything like that for you?
Sometimes it's slow, and that's a really great question, because for me, I started working out of co-working spaces around 2013, 2014 in Washington, D.C. And they were very the culture was very, dare I say, bro culture of the tech world and Silicon Valley. And I didn't feel like I belonged, but I knew I needed the information. Right. So it was that weird feeling of, well, you're kind of one of the only ones here, but do we need this information? But then I would take that information back to my community via my podcasts and social media and sharing of my platform and my journey. So part of it is, you fall down, but if you are willing and able to leave the breadcrumbs and share the information, then pretty soon other people can catch up with you, and then you have community. So for me, that's literally been my journey for the last decade, is that, okay, I wanted to create a piece of technology. I didn't see people that looked like me, but I knew where I could get the information. So I went there. And then I blogged about it, shared about it, podcasted about it, so other people could see that part of the journey and go, oh my God, I have an idea for a piece of tech too, right? And so that's really been what it's about, is that I'm willing to take those bullets in the front end, but also to educate on the back end. Literally, when I launched my podcast, I would have people hand me their phone and show them how to download the app for a podcast because I recorded my first podcast episode in 2009. I think I was like one of the first Black women on Apple's iTunes podcast back then. Right. And so I did 3 episodes, felt out of my depth and no community. I was like, okay, I'll come back to this another time because again, I felt isolated.
Yeah.
But because of sharing the voice and educating the community, like, oh, you need to listen to my podcast. Let me show you. Give me your phone. And literally, I was downloading podcasts onto people's phones, in 2013, 14, 12, so they could understand the technology. So it's on the front end, you're taking the shots, and on the back end, you're trying to educate, which does slow you down in terms of your own growth. Just frankly going to say, it's not like, oh, I can hit the ground running because this path has already been carved.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally carving the path as you're going. And I'm not the only one. Obviously, there are loads of other people who are on this journey and on this path and carving and really innovating for their communities.
Yeah, but I love what you said initially when we first started talking, that it's like as you're bringing in the community and as you're going through the experiences, you may not know that it's going to help you in the future. So, right, even though you're going slow now, when you get, there's going to be a point that it just goes by so quickly because you already have the skill set and you already built the community. Like you were taking the time to build a foundation.
Correct. It's the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point moment,
Yeah.
right? If you could just make it to the tipping point, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
Right? But you look at social media and you're like, no, it takes like half a day to become an overnight success. Like, I don't even have to go to sleep. I should be a success already. What is taking so long? So that's really, if you can keep that mindset as you're going forward, but also test and iterate, right? I can bring in all of that Silicon Valley jargon because it does matter and it does work. You need to understand your market because we are businesses at the end of the day if you are monetizing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So that is important that you understand your market and that you're taking calculated risks. And you're also saying, maybe I take a step back, maybe I take a step sideways. What do I need? What resources are available? Do I change my entire focus on market or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, awesome. So tell me about your shirt because I love it. I love the saying. So tell me about it.
So while I was still kind of doing corporate law and had come out of full-time practice, but was still doing some bits and pieces here on a contract basis, it's around 2015 in Washington, D.C. And it just hit me as I was sitting in a law firm working through some documents, and I was like, I am completely unemployable. Like, how you just take on jobs and you're like, why am I doing this? I know that they're going to frustrate me, whatever reason you don't fit. And then I started to realize, but I'm unapologetic about it because I spent so many years hiding on my LinkedIn profile that I had this other life, right? Or hiding on social and not being too vocal and not really sharing the fullness of the vision and the journey. And I had to start being unapologetic about the fact that it doesn't matter that I'm a lawyer. It doesn't matter what the degrees say. It doesn't matter what my resume says. I am unemployable, unapologetically. And so unapologetically unemployable, I've been saying it ever since 2015 because it just captures. So, I mean, I'm not going to say you feel it too, but there are certain people, I'm sure, who also feel that way. That it's like, no matter what I do, I take on a different job and I think it's going to be different. And I get there, wherever you go, there you are. And if you get to the point where you realize I really can't work for anyone else, I cannot have a supervisor again, ever in life, but that being said, clients matter, customers matter. You're still working for someone.
Yeah.
It's just in what that looks like. And even that mindset piece of this is a client, this is a customer, this is a community member versus this is my boss, for me, unapologetically unemployable.
I love it. I love it because it gives people the permission to celebrate that.
Yeah.
Whereas like in our society, you're taught like you should. I had the same thing. Like you should get a good government job. I never went into the government job, but that's all I heard growing up. Get a good government job, then you get your pension. Like you work at 9, like you just, and it never felt right to me. And people just continue to do it even if it doesn't feel right. So I love that shirt because it's like so bold, and it's giving people permission to say, wow, things can be different, right? There can
Absolutely.
be a B, there can be a C. There are options for me. So that's
And,
awesome.
and again, take calculated risks. I did not fully commit to being a full-time entrepreneur until after my daughter, who's my youngest, graduated college. Because then I didn't have that financial overhead of her rent and her tuition and things like that. So that freed up resources for me. But until then, I needed to have a job. I still needed to work. I still needed to pay those bills. So there's it's a cha-cha, right? One up, two back, sway a little bit, but make it look cute while you do it now. Be clear, be cute, but pay the bills.
True. It's true because I also see people saying, be an entrepreneur. It's fabulous. Like, quit your job and you're going to just make a lot of money. You go on social media, and then people do that and they're rudely awakened. And it's like, okay, this is harder than I thought. I can't pay my bill. Some people tell you, like, make sure you have like 3 to 6 months worth of your salary if you're going to go on off to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, double that.
I was going to say, yeah, and if you're in COVID, you might want 24 months. And that's the thing. I realized by our 1 year anniversary, I was like, if somebody had told me in 2019 that 2020 was going to be 2020, this space would not exist.
Yeah.
And that would have been a shame, right? But because she's supposed to be here, but it is impossible to completely mitigate but it is possible to at least have some calculation to your risk taking and shore up funds as best you can.
Yeah.
Um, and then add tax.
I love it. I love it. So, anything else that you want your viewers to know about your space and what you do with your work?
Sure, absolutely. One of the things is that we are still both a hybrid of online and in-person opportunities. So if you are interested in joining our book club, like we're reading Cicely Tyson's memoir right now. We meet every second Saturday. It's the Her Power Moves book club, books to power your success. And somebody's coming in to pick up his mail. And we're open till 6 to 9. This
I
is
love it.
really
I mean,
nice.
we are live. So,
Maggie's aromatherapy. He just walked in to pick up his mail. So the point is that even if you are online, we have our Unchamber, we have our book club, we have Her Happiness Clinic, a mental wellness space. We have Toastmasters. All of these are a mixture of in-person and online, so you do not have to live locally to participate. And you can go to herpowermoves.com/stay in the know for more information, or head over to herpowerspace.com and get on our newsletter list. You can be anywhere in the world and participate. We have folks come from Paris on our regular monthly calls. So I'm just really thrilled to be able to serve the community beyond the walls of Her Power Space.
that's awesome. And I know, like, prior to COVID, you probably didn't even think about like your space helping people in different countries, right? And now it can.
Exactly. And I'd had a community of over 1,500 women all over the world already, but it didn't click in my mind to put the two together until we were forced to put the two together.
Oh, COVID.
Oh,
Oh,
COVID.
2020.
And 2021, which is a blessing also now because I call it, we've gone from survival to thrival, right? We are now thriving and really able to fall back in love with our clients as opposed to trying to find a way to make sure that the rent is paid, right? So it's like, how can we serve you more? How can we give you more services? How can we assist you more? What else do you need? And really focusing on the back end of the business, which I love right now to be able to do that because I can fall in love with people like Maggie's aromatherapy here who just walked in and he has just started his business and it's super exciting.
Love it. I love aromatherapy too. I'm big
Yeah.
into like essential oils, and I have my essential oils going all the time.
I love it. We just did in Her Happiness Clinic last Friday. We did an essential oils tutorial and mixed our own scents and created our own scents to talk about how that impacts our mood. So I just really am here to to focus on the totality, not only the business segment, but
Yeah.
what are we as whole individuals, whole women, mind, body, spirit.
I love it. And that was kind of my segue because I really say let's do business from a mind, body, soul perspective, right? And one of that aspect is really understanding who you are, what you need, how to take care of yourself for you and your business and your clients, right?
Yeah.
If you're not taking care of yourself and you're not feeling good, nothing else is working.
Exactly. It's so true. And
Yeah.
and in the world, again, I'm gonna just slam the bro culture a little bit. The world would have us believe that everything is operating in these silos. And I'm gonna generalize. For women, we don't. It's all part and parcel, and there's an emotional and mental toll that's taken when people even try to force you to compartmentalize. Don't think about little Johnny being homesick while you got to go to meet with this client or take this call because it's their time where you live. you
Yeah.
know so it's so true that there's this holistic perspective.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you because yes. So what do you do to like keep yourself energized and charged and going? So I say I do something every day that gives me pleasure. And I'm trying to normalize the word pleasure in the business space because everyone, when I say pleasure, they're like, ooh, it's very taboo.
What does that mean?
Right. So, hey. um, so what does that what do you do for yourself to give yourself joy or pleasure for yourself?
No, what it means for me is that I'm able to show up as my authentic self because I am calm.
Mm.
And just one second, so apologize.
Yeah, no worries. So that's what it's all
That's just
about.
in the background.
Multitasking.
Sorry. So for me, it is about having the ability to recharge so that I can show up. And two things really quickly. On December 13th was my birthday. And my gift to myself, it was a Monday, which usually are shorter hours for us here in the space. I put the whole community on notice. Hey, we're actually not going to be open on December 13th for my birthday. I sat at home and I actually turned off my phone, only replied to my kids by text when they said happy birthday. I put the whole family on notice. I am shutting down so that I can focus on getting us grants for the business. I want to submit for grants. And so I spent 9 hours working on 3 different grant applications. That was my self care. And found out 2 weeks ago, and we just announced that we were chosen for a Hello Alice grant for Small
Wow,
Business Growth Fund, right?
that's
And so
awesome.
it was my way of doing self-care. I'm not saying that's everyone else's way, but for me, not communicating with the outside world was how I got back in touch with myself. And not having that baggage of you should be working on grants, you should be working on grants anymore. It freed me up. And so now I can then come back into the office and feel good. And for us, it was even sweeter because we got one of the grants so far. Right?
That's
So
awesome.
whatever that looks like, whether that's aromatherapy, turning off your phone, putting it on D&D, whatever that looks like for you, actually will refuel you to be able to go even higher.
Yes.
And that to me is why it's not a luxury. It
Yes.
is a necessity that
Yeah.
you get yourself internally in alignment, not balance. There's no such thing as balance, but in alignment at least.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Cause I actually am trying to practice putting my phone on like do not disturb. And at first I was like, oh my God, what if people need me? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, nobody really needs me that much. And if they really need me, they know where I live or how to get me. Right. And if I turn off my phone for a half an hour, the world is not going to stop. The messages will be there when I come back. And it's amazing what how you feel just taking a half an hour for yourself, doing whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
totally agree.
I love it. So it was such a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you,
You
thank you,
too.
thank you so much. I
Thank
love your
you.
smile. I love your energy. I love the work that you're doing with your community in Florida, as well as a global community, right? Because you guys are virtual. I can't wait. I think you need to do a couple more grants so you can get down here in New York. I'm just saying,
Speak
start
it.
over.
Well, now we're hiring, so I won't have to close the space, right? So we're going to have somebody who can cover for me on a more regular basis. None of my on-call folks were available that day. So
Oh,
that's really important. I speak it for me. Thank you, Emily. I accept that.
and definitely everyone make sure you go to it's herspace.com.
Herpowerspace.com,
Her,
herpowerspace.com, and just sign up for our newsletters and we'll keep you in the loop and get you to the information you need or want to learn more about us. Thank you so much.
awesome. Yes. And if I know anyone in the Florida area, like two people have come to mind. You said Miami-Dade County or no,
Oh, I'm
Broward
in
County.
Broward County, which is right above, but we're all tri-county, right? Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade are all sort of a hop, skip, and a jump apart.
Yeah. So I'm gonna tell them to go to your way.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching Digital Growth
Yeah.
Live. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Bye bye.